Hi, everyone. Welcome to Talks at Google. Today, it is my pleasure to welcome Allison Williams and Daniel Kaluuya for Get Out.
Oh,
Hi.
hey, how you doing? How you doing?
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us, man.
So let's start off with the beginning. How did you both get involved in this project?
I got an email and a phone call from my agent, and he was like, I'm sending you a script that Jordan Peele wanted me to send to you, which triggered anxiety event number one. That he knew who I was and wanted potentially to work with me was mind-blowing, because I was a huge Key and Peele fan, because I'm a human being who has eyeballs and likes things. And so I read the script, and my agent also was like, it's not a comedy. So I thought, oh, that's so interesting. So I read it, and as I was reading it, I was already getting excited about it. And then I FaceTimed with Jordan for like 2 hours, and we talked about Daniel and who might be part of it. And it was like he was trying to convince me to do it, but at the very beginning of our conversation, I was like, I'm so excited to do this. And then he just kept trying to convince me, and we had very similar experiences.
Yeah, I read it, and then I was like, oh, man, this is like 12 Years a Slave, a horror movie. And I was like, my boys would go crazy for this. And then I emailed, and they were like, Jordan wants to Skype with you. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I'm going to Skype with Jordan Peele. That's insane. And then that was it. I don't even care about the film.
Like I won a contest or something.
I was like, I'm going to have this story forever. And then he was like, he knows who you are. I was like, what? Like, that don't even make sense. And then I Skyped with him, and then he watched Black Mirror, the show I did back home a few years back.
So good.
And then I was like, yo, that's crazy that. And then I realized this Netflix is a thing out there. And he was really cool, and I really understood. I mean, the script made me feel like, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you can say this. You know what I mean? I go, okay, I definitely want to be a part of this. And Jordan just got it.
Yeah, the script was amazing, and he'd spent about 5 years working on it and just kind of mulling it over. He'd put it down and come back to it. And as a result of that, there was just it was so tight, and it was so well crafted, and I was just instantly excited about it.
So Jordan not only wrote, but he directed it. And
yes.
as you mentioned, most of us probably know him from his comedy background.
Yeah.
Or, the work he does now. But what was what was the most unexpected thing about having him at the helm of it?
I don't know, just kind of a daily thing where it's like, oh yeah, he's our director.
Yeah, he'll text you.
Yeah, like I get a text from Jordan Peele, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, he knows who I am. So I know he's just so smart, man, and he's so on it, and he's so collaborative. And that's what it was, the daily, and then sometimes he'd be Tracy Morgan or whatever character.
Or Obama.
Yeah,
if we needed
on
like
set,
a little energy, he'd just direct.
He'd be really cool.
Go into some other character. But he's so talented as a director, and the movie is great evidence of that. But also, we had a firsthand daily experience of being directed by him, which was amazing. And he's collaborative but firm when he really believes something needs to be a certain way, which just as actors, it makes us trust him so much. It's like having a parent that is strict when they need to be, but understanding and collaborative and compassionate, regardless. So he was phenomenal to work with, and I would do whatever he asked of me.
Yes.
Our jobs in this movie are proof of that.
I'm just going to dive into this topic because you can't really talk about this film without addressing race, just because it's such an important part of this entire film. And it's at Google as a whole, we've been having a lot of conversations about race and representation lately. And I'm curious if the process of making this film made you notice anything about sort of behavior in the world in general that you might not have been attuned to before.
I think probably this is mostly for me.
Because it goes both ways, right? Because part of it is hey, if you're of a different race and you're stepping into a scenario where you are the outsider, it changes things. And maybe before you didn't realize that you're that different from other people, and then you're made hyper aware of it.
No, I think it's quite. I think there's similarities, but I do think that being black in a white environment is quite specific. And it has its own specificity of weirdness, and just because I think racism is really weird. I think racism is a really weird thing for people to have, and so yeah, that's what the script at the party scene. There's a party scene in it, and I was like, and when everyone was kind of trying to make Chris feel welcome and comfortable by keeping on asking him questions about blackness. And I was like, I've been to that party. I go to that party. I'm going to that party soon. I don't know when, it's like I know that, and that's, I don't know if any other that's the same. You know, I don't think that's the same. I don't think it manifests in the same way when people go, I'm really cool with this. Yo, have you seen this basketball game? I go, bro, I'm English. I don't care about basketball, man. I watch football, bro. And it's that kind of thing. Yeah.
And I was I like to think of myself as someone who's pretty sensitive to that stuff. And so in the script, obviously, I caught all of that. But I also think of myself as someone who's never done listening and learning and trying to understand what it's like to go through life as someone else. I can never fully know that, but I can do my best every day to expand what I know of the human experience. And so doing this movie was fascinating for me on multiple levels because I got to, the whole audience gets to go through the movie from his eyes. And so already you're subverting what is the typical horror trope of having the final girl, and so you're typically going through a horror movie through a a white woman's eyes, and you're seeing it through the male gaze typically. And so in this, we subverted it doubly. Not only do we have a final boy, but we have a black final boy, which is not a normal situation. And so as a result, the screenings of the movie reveal what Jordan earlier referred to as a Rorschach test, which I love, because the way you react to things in the movie and when are really revelatory about your own experience. And if a lot of people in the audience who don't look like you are laughing at something, then it's worth investigating what that is and why you might not know about it. And again, apologies for how vague we're being, but there are a lot of spoilers in this movie. And so a lot of our answers sound like bad press releases, but we're just doing our best to not spoil stuff.
We're trying to preserve the experience for one, because watching the film and knowing what some of you're referring to.
It's just a different experience.
No, it is, but it was actually interesting going back and seeing like the trailer again, having seen the film and realizing this is totally a different experience. And I feel like we haven't actually seen a film like this ever, possibly, because you have,
Yeah, that's what I remember. I was in a car with Sean, the producer, and then we was talking about life, and then he was like talking about this film and talk about why the budget's really low and talk about a lot of stuff. And he was like, the thing is about this film, it's never been done before. This is a risk. And I was like, that's why I said yes.
Me too.
That's exactly what, and that's exciting. Doing stuff like that's exciting because you're like, I don't know what's gonna happen after 24th. I have no idea. Like it's new territory, new areas, and that's why we're here for, to do stuff that's different. And
that's something we immediately bonded over, is that neither of us is particularly interested in safety as far as our careers go, which is very dumb, like from an actual longevity standpoint. But it's selfish because we want to keep challenging ourselves and keeping ourselves guessing in terms of what's coming next. And so I think we both get sent a lot of roles that we felt like we've played, itches we feel we've scratched. And so then this comes along and both of us were just like, oh my God, this is not someone I'm ever going to be sent again, nor have I ever seen this character before. If I don't do this, when will it ever happen? So, but I do think that this movie more than most is a really good communal viewing experience for the reasons I gave before, but also because it's told so carefully through the perspective of Chris. The audience isn't ahead of him. It's annoying in horror movies, and the audience knows something that the protagonist doesn't. So you're literally like, you feel helpless in the way that he does if he's feeling helpless in that moment or empowered. And so it's a really active participation movie. There have been a bunch of screenings now at this point, and all of them are very vocal, which is fantastic. And then the second time you see the movie, it's a completely different movie. It's a totally different movie. You have a different protagonist. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but you're suddenly watching the movie through somebody else's eyes, and it's just a really cool narrative thing that Jordan did that we worked very hard to like layer into all the performances.
Were you worried at all, because you said you're not concerned with safety, but to take this role, you have to sort of embrace certain stereotypes. I feel like the entire film depends on like society as a whole's assuming things about both of you. Like, so where did you draw from in terms of like, okay, this is a moment where I really want to embrace like the kind of stereotype of what people are expecting from like a white woman. I'm just gonna say it, like, you know.
Yeah, you can call me a white woman. That's fine.
But I feel like, you know, a suburban
Yeah.
white woman has like certain connotations, and where you would all like, hey, I really just don't want to be associated with this. Or
Well,
was it,
having
like,
been
I
a
have to?
suburban white woman my entire life, I feel I felt actually like I was excited to be able to play that archetype in such a kind of outright way in this movie, because it kind of dethorns any association I have with that class, so to speak, going forward, and it gives me a great excuse to not have to do it again. So now I can kind of like, I've done that. I did the like Marnie version of it, and I mean, Peter Pan is not in this category at all, but you just white, English, ageless, flying boy, but so that's like a different thing entirely. And then, but Rose also feels like, okay, now I can kind of walk away from this version of a person. And it's also why Jordan wanted me to play it, is he came to the whitest girl to play the whitest girl. And I was like, yes, I acknowledge that as my mantle, and I will play it dutifully. So
Yeah, I mean, there's something, me and Jordan had a conversation. I really was wary. I really wanted Chris to be, not saying I'm excluding anyone else, any other, but I really wanted Chris to be a black guy that black people would root for. Because sometimes in this kind of arena, he can, like in those situations, he could be seen as like not speaking up and not, you know, so I was very wary, especially at that party. If someone said something, they'd be like, well, I remember there was that scene when we...
if you're like code switching too much, it's not going to read.
Yeah, it just gonna look. He looks like a sellout. They will perceive it as a sellout. It's not being a sellout. It's how it's perceived in the public consciousness. And I was wary about that, because you'd want him to go. You want black people to watch. Go. I'd make that decision. I understand that. I understand it. And I think the root of it is the fact that he loved his girlfriend. I mean, and he loves his girlfriend, and he's like he's being vulnerable because of this bond, and he has like real affection for her, so he's willing to withstand certain comments, but he's aware that there's a comment. He's not going, oh, yeah, it's cool, but he's like, listen, I know my politics, I know what the situation is, and I'm only choosing not to say certain things because out of respect, this is her arena. So that's for me what I really wanted to put, because obviously in the interracial relationship, because of the conversation in America, some people think that you're not part of the black community because you're dating a white girl, and just,
Which we also kind of get into in the movie.
yeah, exactly, and that's such an interesting territory. So I had to be careful, because I did want boys that I grew up with like to go, yo, nah, yeah, I understand, and then that's what, when the trailer came out, I had people that I grew up with go, yo, I get that. He's got a pretty girl. He's just a good guy, and he's just like, and that's what the reaction I was reaching for. I didn't want him to feel isolated in that sense.
And the nice thing to that end is that Jordan kind of structured in this other arc for Rose to be learning to see everything through his eyes too. So their relationship comes out of a metropolitan setting where it's not very unusual to see an interracial couple, and then it goes into the suburbs. It's not specified which city or which suburb, which makes it scarier, because you can't tell yourself that it wouldn't happen where you live, because it could. But when they leave this context that they're used to being in and return to a context that's really familiar to Rose, she starts to look at the world that she's always known in a completely new way, and she's starting to observe people from without with his insight. And so suddenly the way that her dad is talking sounds weird to her. He's saying "my man," and she's like, I don't think I've ever heard him say "my man," and he's said that like 10 times since you got here. Suddenly there's a bunch of things that she's noticing for the first time. And so they're partnered in that sense. She's not saying like, no, everyone's being normal. What are you talking about? She's like, this is weird. They're being weird. I was so sure they weren't going to be weird about it. And, you know, it's subtle stuff, but at least Rose is his partner in paying attention to it.
Daniel, I'm curious, because you aren't from here, and as you mentioned, like, you know, people assume like, oh, basketball and stuff like that. But so much of this takes place, like, as you said, a lot of the terror of it comes from like, it's a suburb, it's a very American-seeming suburb. Is that something that you were just inherently like, no, I totally get what's going on here, or did you have to do research on suburbs, basically? It just seems like such a culture difference. And I
just met me, and that was like, he was good.
I understand
Cool.
whiteness. I
Easiest
understand
research
whiteness
ever.
now.
Like, this is great. This is all the
is
information
white.
I need. Yeah.
No, I feel like I had to latch onto the things that were truthful to me, and I think I do think in terms of England and America there are parallels, and I feel I'm working class, and so growing up black working class, and I'm black working class doing a quite middle class job, so I'm in certain rooms that my life wouldn't have me in, so you fulfill the same role in terms of, it's like going to the house we went to in the film is similar going to I've been to that house with someone that owns a construction company. I don't know why I was there. I don't know how I got there.
I really want to get into this.
Yo. They had a room, yeah? They had a room. I know this is maybe really normal if you're rich though. But like they had a room, yeah, where you just wait to eat. Like there's a room there and it's
that
like.
That sounds really English.
There's like we have just like a sitting room, yeah? Just like a sitting where you eat vibes and everything. They had a room where you wait before you go into the dining room.
Oh, like a sitting room.
Is that what's it?
Yeah, I'm just going based on like Downton Abbey or The Crown.
Yeah, so like, obviously
layout.
Because of my job, I open to like that's wild to me. Like there's just a room where you stand and wait. You're only there for like 10 minutes, like every day, and so it's like that's what I'm trying to say. You occupy the same positions within the social ladder and the social structure, and so I identified with that in the sense that Chris obviously he's a photographer, so he's doing something quite artistic. So that opens a world to him, and I think a lot of people go, I mean, this is a debate that's happening in England where like they don't want to see any hood dramas, like dramas that are about working class. But I think what's really honest is something that was in Atlanta as well, where it's like, no, it's certain people's lives are the fact that you get into really crazy, poor situations and you get into this massive mansion at the same time and you don't belong in either now.
I love that episode.
Yeah. You don't belong in either spaces anymore because you've tasted that and you've tasted that. And it's just going, I'm in the middle. And that's why I really identified with Chris, is that because of his job and because of his passion, he meets someone like Rose, or he's open to date someone like Rose, but he's not from that world. And he's going, I think a lot of people around the world go through that experience, and so and you want to tell stories that resonates internationally, and you want to find the international truth as opposed to a specific, because that will help you to layer the specificity of the story you're telling.
You didn't know each other beforehand, so there's a logic train to this that I hope you can follow along. So one of the things for me, I was like, and this is just partially because we work at Google, I was like, man, your character must have just like zero digital footprint, because I don't know if anyone's ever been tempted to like Google someone they're starting to date, but
I feel like I think we're gonna just avoid this.
Avoid that. But it's interesting. That's an interesting question.
It's
an interesting question.
I spent a lot of time thinking about that.
I realized I was dating. There was a time I was dating a lot, yeah, and then all these girls would be like, because I'm not on social media, and they'd be really frustrated because they Google you. Like that's a thing now. Like everyone Googles everyone.
Yeah, well, you're a famous actor. That's not a problem.
What do you mean?
They can Google you. You have
Yeah, but they want to know the personal stuff. They want to know like mutual friends and want to know all that stuff. Like they want to know.
No, so my question is, were you tempted? Did you Google each other before going into this experience?
I'm sorry.
It was not. Yeah, no.
Oh, okay, cool.
We've run into this problem a lot doing press for the movie. There's like a point where we can't.
No.
Talk about it. Okay,
but it made me honestly. The point in the film made me think about like, hey.
I was already a fan of his because I love Skins, which was originally a show in the UK, and he was in Skins. And I also loved his episode of Black Mirror, and I was a big Sicario fan. It was like a little creepy, honestly, the amount that I really respected his work. And Jordan, when he told me that it was going to be Daniel, he was like, "It's this actor Daniel Kaluuya," and he started to describe him, and I was like, no, I know exactly who he is, because after that episode of Black Mirror, I was like, who is this person? Because it was so striking and beautifully done. And so I didn't need to do a lot of Googling. I think I knew he was Ugandan because I was curious, English by way of Uganda in a big way. It's not appropriate for me to respond in kind.
No.
This for Uganda, that doesn't look right.
I'm just doing it in appropriate points
cool,
now.
Cool.
And because this is awkward, and I find people feel it really weird.
But that's how much I knew about you.
I watched Girls, the first season of Girls, and I thought she was great in it. She was so great that she annoyed me.
Not good enough to keep watching, though.
No, you annoyed me. That's how great, because I get invested. I was like, no, but Marnie, why is she doing that? I remember I had an actual conversation about it. I was like, no, but she did this thing, yeah? And this is and it's because I've been through those situations. I was like, she did this thing, yeah? She did this thing. And then when my friend goes, but that's what makes it really great. That's what makes her really great, because you felt it. And I was like, yeah. I can't watch it for a bit. And then I found out she was in it, and I was like, I'm definitely not watching it. Because I found out she was in Get Out, because it will make me too I just wanted to meet Allison. You know what I mean? And just, you can kind of taint it. Like the other day I met Chance the Rapper. I was an idiot, man. I just did some stilly stuff, and I showed him a video of my friend dancing at his concert. Like, it makes it weird. Like, do you know what I mean? And I was like, I get weird in those situations, so I try and keep ignorant. I go, oh, Allison, cool. Love your work. And then and that's it. I keep it moving.
But then we had a long car ride to go. We went on like a cast retreat on the water. And so I was like, I will drive Daniel. And he was probably like, oh God. And you're a pretty private dude. But I was.
I'm private?
I mean, pretty much. Yeah. You just went on like a diatribe against social media.
Yeah, no, it's not even that. I just don't post publicly.
Yeah, you're private. Literally. That's the definition.
Is that public or private? No, I think it's just being normal. And then if you're being public, that's an effort.
Anyway,
that's
I got it
going
all.
out of your station.
I got it all out of him, and now I'm also going to keep it private until you decide to just live out loud, man. Live your truth.
Give my truth and just be out there. No, I just keep it moving. Yeah.
We have time for one or two audience questions if anyone wants to line up. I would love to know, just because independent of any of the scary or horror stuff that happens in this film, meeting someone's family is very awkward when you're in a relationship. Have either of you ever had a horror story about meeting friends, whatever, somebody else's the important people in their lives?
Yeah, it's weird because this exact same thing happened to you, right?
No.
I'm kidding.
No. I remembered another one.
No, you didn't. We've been asked this question a lot, and it's always disappointing because neither of us is very awkward. But
I remembered another one. So I had my first girlfriend watching this play now, and this is that and the other. And then, cultured, 17.
No big deal.
You know, it is great dates.
Oh, a play at 17.
Yeah, 18. And then I came out, and then she was like, she got a text. She goes, no, she got a text from her mum, and it was like, oh my God, my dad's here. Her dad found out. Her dad never knew that we were like having a situation. So her dad found out where he was, got out of her mum, and then drove to the theater and was outside ready to pick her up. And I was like, what's happening? He goes, oh my God, I'm gone. She started crying and stuff. She goes downstairs and he was just waiting outside looking for her. Like waiting outside the theater.
Did she say she was someone? Did she lie about where she was?
She told her mum, because her mum was cool with it, but the dad wasn't cool with it. And then I came out.
Was she white?
No, she was mixed race.
All right.
It was like half black, half.
You just didn't. I know what that means.
Yeah,
but she just didn't want.
I don't know. In America, people don't know what that means. Like,
give me some fucking credit, dude.
One drop rule. I don't understand it. It's whatever. But yeah. So she was like, he was outside, and then I was like, oh, cool. And then she had to go ahead. She goes, okay, I'm gonna sort it out. And he just went crazy. He was like, get in the car, get in. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah, I know. I completely forgot about it.
Oh my God. Yeah, I've done nothing. Really, it's all been pretty smooth.
Excellent.
Hi, thank you guys so much for coming.
Really like your
appreciate
sweatshirt.
it. Thank you. Lemonade all day. Yep. So my question is actually for Allison. When Girls was coming out, there was a lot of controversy and conversation, of course, about race in the show. And so it's very interesting to see you now in a film that is so kind of race forward and really taking it on. I don't think I've heard kind of what your thoughts were during that controversy. Like, what were you thinking? How would you have responded to some of that critique? And what do you think that this movie will have you kind of bringing to future projects in terms of like a heightened or maybe a different sort of a racial consciousness?
Thank you for that question. I would say that I'm not really interested in, and this is something that Lena and Jenny also share, going forward, I'm not interested in doing something that is that one-dimensional racially, just as like a blanket rule. But beyond being interested, it just doesn't feel reflective of my life and the demographics of the people that I spend time with. The other thing is that this is an issue that I think about a lot. And when the show came out and was getting that criticism, it was something that I had noticed. But I also knew that due to how intimate it was for Lena since she basically wrote it all. For her to have tried to write someone else's experience, she may have failed miserably, and that could have been just as bad. So I totally thought the criticism was legitimate, but I also was like a baby 22-year-old who was just trying to figure out what was happening to me, and I wasn't gonna like full-throatedly be like, here's the problem I have with this situation. But I think she was right. She wrote 2 characters from each part of her, cultural heritage, and that felt like something she had the authority to write. And everything that I'm currently working on and everything that I intend to do going forward has to do with a lot of this. I mean, with disability, with race, with feminism, all of that. I actually like live in those spaces in my free time. And all the work that I do extracurricularly has to do with all of these issues. I prefer to let the work I do speak for itself rather than talking about it. I like listening more and learning because that's my job. Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angeline, and I'm a really big fan of Girls. And when I first saw that you were going to be in Get Out, I was like, what is Marnie going to do? And then I was left feeling like Allison Williams can really fucking act. So
Thank you.
Incredible, isn't it?
One question that I have is thinking about how you felt as Allison Williams and as Daniel Kaluuya about the film. So when I left, it was a very visceral experience for me, and I actually went home and cried for like a number of reasons. But I'm wondering, not as actors, but like as people, how did you feel about that film? And that sounds really flowery, but I'm trying to...
No, it's not flowery at all. It's not flowery at all. I felt it wasn't fun for me.
No.
It was kind of how racism feels like for me. It got me really down. I've been there. I've been in that place where I've got so much rage. And it mirrored how my insides are sometimes. The last 20 minutes. I know it. And I didn't know that in the script. I knew it, but I didn't have the words for it as yet. But when I watched it and I saw it and and it's like, yeah, there's blood because there's blood in racism, man. People die every day for it. Die every day by the hands of the law, And every time you see it on the screen, it gets you because that person looks like you. That person looks like your auntie. That person looks like your cousin. And like,
go easy.
No, I'm not saying to her. I'm saying that she ain't racist to me. She's cool.
No, I meant she said she was very affected by it. I'm just saying it's like, that's your aunt. That's your...
No, but that's real though. But it's real.
No, I know.
Because when people die like that, there ain't no pullback from that mum that's lost her son, There ain't that. And so it felt like, it was a visceral, it stayed with me when watching it. And I was like, man, like this is, and that paranoia, and just that arc of the paranoia and not knowing who to trust and being in a situation where no one sees you, and for whatever reason, when someone goes, you don't see me, you can't get it, I can't communicate. We speak completely different languages, yet we're talking English. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I felt that watching it, and it was tough, but it was entertaining at the same time, so it was quite weird, and I was just like, oh man. But then I felt cool, because I was like, this is very important, because it's about a feeling as opposed to box office and XYZ or XYZ in it. So I was really proud of Jordan that he put his reputation on the line to make this story happen.
Yeah. Personally, I also felt upset after the first time I saw it. I was excited because I knew it would be noisy, and I knew it would be disruptive, and that was what we did it for. After I watched it, I was like, this is as good as it needed to be. I'm so thrilled. I think it will be seen by the people who need to see it, and hopefully they'll see it in theaters with people who don't share their background, and they'll learn a little bit about the way they look at the world. My experience of playing Rose and going through all that she goes through was in the moment. Of course, I had to be her, so that was one experience. But then watching it back, I feel shame on behalf of a lot of people that I don't feel that I am related to, or that it's my actual legacy. But just as a general idea, I feel a lot of shame about it. And so in that sense, I feel pride for having breathed life into her so that people can look at her and her whole family critically. And even if Rose feels like she's a victim of something bigger than she is, or however you want to look at her, that critical eye was something that I worked very hard to breathe life into in a way that people could feel a lot of ways about. I'm being very vague again, but I basically worked hard to make people feel a lot of things about my character that were going to be maybe uncomfortable for them. And I recognized that was my job in this movie, and my job was to be a support system for Daniel as Chris, and to help people live through his eyes instead of mine, which is what they're used to doing. And I was very happy to do that, to do my part.
Great job.
Thank you.
I think that's a great note to wrap up on. I think this movie brings a lot of food for thought, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.